sensational friends. It's time for us to discuss one of my favorite subject matters, essential oils. I'd like to call this video a bit of a primer because I've done YouTube videos on patchouli and vetiver and other fragrances, but this time I just want to cover a lot of bases, discuss some of my all-time favorite fragrances, and add them into one real nice video for you guys so you can all get the sense of what's the best stuff out there, what'll do you the most good, what is the most therapeutic, and of course it's all natural, and that matters a lot. Each day for me is like a symphony of fragrance. And sometimes if you'd ever wondered to yourself, well, why would you ever even want to descend into matter in the first place? One of the reasons would be just to enjoy fragrance. Now remember what I said before though, essential oils, 100% pure essential oils, not fragrance, not just some smell. It's inappropriate. It's got to be organic. It's got to be the real stuff. Essential oils are like fine wine. Depending on the climate and the country and the time of the year they've been cultivated, they can vary in their subtle notes or nuances. So here's how a day for Danny would start. First of all, I like olibanum. Let me see, I know it as Boswellia carteri, and everybody would know it as frankincense oil. So I would take my pure essential frankincense oil like I've done for the past, 40 years, and put a dab of it on my hand. Then take a bottle of my witch hazel. I've got all different variables upstairs, but take a nice squeeze bottle of witch hazel, splash it into my palm, still holding the olibanum so it now rises to the top of the witch hazel. Rub it up, splash it on the skin, and just let it air dry. It works wonders because the witch hazel is a good tonic for your skin. So even in my younger days when I had, let's say, more oily skin and didn't like that, now of course as an older guy I'm thrilled that I have oily skin because it keeps it a little bit more supple. But if you have a T-zone, you'll find that witch hazel is a very subtle tonic. So it doesn't dry out your skin, but it does just what your skin really does need. And of course the olibanum, I absolutely swear by its anti-wrinkling property. I mean, I'm not a kid anymore, but I certainly, and by the way, I'm a sun worshiper, but I don't really have too many of those fine lines and wrinkles because of the olibanum. I absolutely swear by it. In fact, lately though, if you look at some of the ingredients rather, in some of the very best skin creams, it inevitably has olibanum in it. So frankincense, of course, and I've got it all over the house. Bottles, little bottles, bags and bags of it. I've had it all my life. It's not something new for me. I've always had it. But the great thing about these frankincense tears is they, when they melt on a charcoal, they have the tendency to purify the air and have been used since time immemorial to do just that, to cleanse the air and put out a vibrational field of purity, a purity that negative vibrations are said not to necessarily enter into. It seems so very real, it seems so true. It really works. So I try to find, whenever possible, the whitest of the frankincense. They seem to be the purest. Now what I do, of course, because I'm a purist myself, is when the frankincense just starts to melt into the charcoal, you can get these charcoals, these self-igniting charcoals on the internet anywhere. They're just a few bucks, they're not costly. But what I tend to do is, just as the essential oil of a frankincense tear melts into the charcoal, I'll knock it off. I just want that one droplet. Then, to absolutely make sure the air is purified, I'll throw on a little bit of Lakota white sage. Now the reason though, if I have someone coming for, let's say, a seance or spiritual work, I normally though would not put the sage on until my clients arrive, because Lakota white sage has almost a marijuana-like fragrance, unfortunately. So it definitely makes you feel uplifted, but the problem though is, if you have clients coming and they walk into a smell like this, they might think that you've been on a bong for the past hour before you're going to do a very professional, important work, which I don't touch this stuff myself. But I find though that if the frankincense is in the air, the myrrh, which I have here, is also in the air, ruled by Mars, cigars, I might add. Then I'll throw on the sage so that my clients see me do so, and they know that it's Lakota White Sage. By the way, speaking of sage, I have a clary sage that I tend to love a lot, but I've had to learn over the years, you've got to be really careful with clary sage. So the tiniest drop, I mean the tiniest, almost just the air of it really, applied to the third eye, opens up the pineal gland or the consciousness, but again, you've got to go real light with this. Now what you just saw me do, a responsible aromatherapist would tell you not to do, which is don't apply fragrances neat to the skin. So my responsibility to you is to tell you such. But you know what? I've experimented with essential oils all my life, so I know now what I can apply to my skin, what I can't, what a guy's skin is a little bit more tolerant of, and maybe what a gal's or a more sensitive type person's skin maybe it should absolutely not be applied to the surface topically. So back to the daily regimen. The next thing that I find I would want to do after shampooing my hair or just cleaning up after a shower is get a little bit of rosemary oil, Rosmarinus officinalis. Get a few drops, put it on your palm of your hand, again, rubbing your hands together, and rub this rosemary essential oil through your hair. It makes your hair smell great, fresh, very evergreen, and very shiny. So it makes your hair look really beautiful. So a great suggestion for your so-called beauty regimen is rosemary oil. It really works. Let's go further. Now I have to start composing the melody of the day. So I've got the morning fragrances on, but it's time to get dressed. So, of course, my all-time favorite is my patchouli oil. Now, patchouli oil is a very, very slow evaporating fragrance. I've had this bottle now for probably 25 years. The reason I do, however, is patchouli oil does not necessarily degrade. If anything, it gets better with age, sort of like me. So the fragrance is fantastic. Now again, it has almost a slow, if not a no evaporation rate. So I would almost say with patchouli also, put it on lightly. Put it on a lower part of your body. Let it rise up from your body heat and envelop you. These slow evaporation rate fragrances like patchouli, and my patchouli oils tend to be light to begin with. I don't want it too heavy, but for a dude, and by the way, gals smell great with it too, but I notice a lot of candles and fragrances made now for guys are with patchouli. I find this earthy, grassy, musky smell. Let me get away from musky. Not too musky though. I don't really go for that too much. But this grassy, almost decayed leaf smell, but the sweetest of it, like an autumn fragrance, blends very well with, let's say, one of my all-time favorites since I was a little boy, my clove oil. I love eugenol, which dentists use. You'll find sometimes when they're working on your teeth. This is another fragrance I put on in the morning. They use eugenol or clove oil, clove bud oil. It has anti-fungal or other numbing properties even. If you have a toothache, you can even put a clove of which I have somewhere over here, a clove of clove is what I meant to say, a clove bud of clove in a mortar and pestle. Crush it up possibly, put a little bit on an inflamed gum, and it does take down inflammation. Since I was in high school, I've always applied a little bit of my clove oil, which I've had for a long, long time, to an area of my skin that normally you'd think would be pretty sensitive. Again, my skin can take it, but that's my skin. I would never advise that you put clove oil on your skin, and especially after a shower when your pores are all open. So don't do what Danny does. Just understand that the fragrance itself, though, is warm. It's beautiful, it's sweet. But I remember kids in high school used to say, when I was in class sometimes, they'd be like, is someone cooking a ham in class? What the hell's going on? And I'd be like, just doing my work, like, not necessarily fessing up that I'm the one that's wearing the clove oil. But again, you should do what I do. Wear fragrance because it satisfies you, because you love it. Now bear in mind, these slow evaporation fragrances are going to last a long time. So I personally would mix my patchouli, frankincense, and my myrrh. By the way, myrrh gets so viscous, so almost cement-like, that unless you're going it under hot water, you can barely get the bottle open at times. It's that intense. It's a fantastic fragrance. I love it a lot. Slightly sweet and rubbery, but I go for it. I like to mix it sometimes, not every day, usually on rainy days, with vetiver. Vetiver is a rhizome or a root. They say that it draws abundance and gain to you, not just money, but just gain in general, gain of even good thoughts. I love vetiver a lot. It's very reminiscent of, let's say, a campfire that was put out by rain. So imagine rain and burnt wood, very unusual. Love vetiver. Now, some people call it vetivert. I know that there are other purists. I tend to call my fragrances the way I like to call them, and I just find vetiver to be a bit more romantic. Now, we've just spoken about those slow evaporation rate fragrances. My wife doesn't like to wear fragrance, but everybody always says to her, wow, you smell great, like some kind of patchouli. It's because she sleeps with a walking incense stick, not because she wears it. So be aware of your partner, who may or may not like certain fragrances. For instance, the only fragrance my wife, red flags, I'm not allowed to wear is sandalwood. I love sandalwood. Some of these lower evaporation fragrances, by the way, are expensive. But I won't wear it if she doesn't like it. I would like to wear it. But if she's letting me wear just about every fragrance in the fragrance organ that I could possibly have gathered over the years, then I can disallow myself one fragrance, sandalwood. So the last thing that I might add now to my morning ritual before I'm completely dressed, or actually at least when the pants are on, is I throw into my pants pocket a vanilla bean. So these vanilla beans, I know, are not necessarily inexpensive either. They come from Madagascar. 2 beans will cost you $7. I know that isn't, but I go to a cheaper store to find these gourmet beans. But you put a vanilla bean in your pocket, and you're going to love that fragrance that you add, that vanilla fragrance to your body. Sometimes also in the afternoon, I'll put a little bit of my coffee extracts and coconut oil or organic vanilla bean, and I find by doing so, by doing so, I smell a little bit like let's say a latte. It's really fantastic though, and bear in mind, by the way, gals like to wear honeysuckles, which I'm not necessarily, by the way, I've got some I just picked from the garden, honeysuckles and florals, orchids, passion flowers, very hypnotic fragrances such as that. But guys as a general rule are attracted to the vanillas, the pumpkin spices like the clove or nutmeggy fragrances or things like that. So gals might even want to consider that in their repertoire if they're looking to get a guy's attention. For instance, when I go down to the harbor, to the fishmonger every now and then, I'll be going fairly soon to Captain Ben's. What's interesting then is these guys smell the salty air, the fresh water, the fish, and that kind of an air all day. When I walk in with my patchouli on, inevitably one of the dudes, his ears perk up, his eyes light up, and he's like, where's that smell coming from? That's fantastic. And it's not because it's any better than, let's say, the salt and the sea and the fresh air. It's just such a polarity of fragrances that it kind of moves an individual to just be like, feel a rush of fragrance. Okay, let's move over next to our top note fragrances. So let's move on, yes, to those late afternoon top notes. So in the afternoon, I would start to apply my ginger fragrances. This is a Origins ginger essence. So yes, it's not like my essential oils. It's got a little bit of alcohol in it. It tends to become more ambient rather quickly. So give a spritz, so I can smell it, and then maybe a little bit down below, so my clothes smell great. It's a top note. It'll disappear pretty quickly. I, however, of course, always have to make the fragrance a bit more dramatic. So I'll go for one of my pure essential ginger oils, and I'll tend to blend that into one of these fragrances, so I've got more of that real rhizome of ginger. I love it. It's uplifting, like all top notes are. Occasionally I'll add to that, where is my, neroli. Absolutely love neroli. It comes from largely Italy, occasionally France. It's a lemon leaf. I think your palate has to really be quite appreciative of it. It does take time, but when you mix it with things like Valencia orange, lemon, again, it's so uplifting, it's quite charming. these energies really start to make you feel great. But here's an interesting thing about even cultures when it comes to these fragrances. If I walk into, let's say, to get some Chinese food for me and the wife, and I'm wearing gingers, or they come with a delivery of food, and I've got orange, mandarin, neroli, or ginger on, they love it. But if I walk in smelling like patchouli or some of those deeper fragrances we just mentioned a moment ago, because I'm I'm friends with them, I give them crystals all the time, and everybody knows me, they're quick to say, what is that fragrance you're wearing? Please don't wear it again. It's so interesting that others, like the fish guy down the block, will love it, and the Asians up the corner can't stand the patchouli oil, and let's say East Indians, though, would adore their, they have to have their fabrics interwoven with patchouli. It's just the difference in cultures which is quite unique. Fragrances ultimately that you collect can start to cost you a lot of money. Some are not expensive, that I just spoke of, and some are much more expensive. Your olibanums, your sandalwood, if you choose to buy it, your deep notes like labdanum, which I haven't even spoke about yet, they tend to cost a lot of money. Some fragrances don't cost a lot at all. For instance, spearmint oil. Now, I just went into the backyard, by the way, and just collected my spearmints. I have woolly spearmint, and I have a chocolate spearmint that smells so much like a Girl Scout cookie, you just want to eat a box of just the mint leaf. But so when people come into my backyard for a tour of the garden, I don't just pick the woolly spearmint for them, and I prefer spearmint over peppermint. It's just a personal choice. Mentha spicata. But what I'll do though is before I hand it to them, because I think that they feel like maybe they're too intrusive they shouldn't be bruising the leaf. So I'll tend to crush it up first and hand it to them. This way I've released the fragrance. You can see Max is already, I don't know if you can see it on film, but Max is reacting to the fragrance because it's in the catnip family. So he already gets a sense of, what's that? Now, you know it's in the catnip family because catnip, mentha spicata, and melissa, lemon balm, which I have in my hand right here, have a square stem. So I'm releasing mint into the air. By the way, if you need to get mice away from your home, plant spearmint outside doorways. This Victorian like this has got, what, 57 freaking doorways. I put them all over different doorways or windows that I don't want mice climbing up. Mice do not like the scent of mint. They won't climb up mint at all. And take the mint essential oils even and sprinkle them around the inside two of the doorways. You'll like it. It'll smell refreshing, and they won't go for it. Lemon balm is another thing that I find very soothing. I had some gals here recently, a Reiki master brought me some beautiful John of God water to give to my clients. It's becoming a ritual lately. But what I did for them is I picked some melissa, crunched up in my hands. Oh my God, this is out of this world. Handed it to them, and the relaxation vibrational field really came in. So by now mid-afternoon to nighttime, I'm starting to apply all the top notes, really just to kind of keep me going with my energy levels. So my signature fragrance, of course, in the past number of years, maybe 5 or 6 or 7, is labdanum. I absolutely love it, and no, it is not cheap. Labdanum. It's also got the square stem. It's out of this world. Absolutely love it. I have to do a whole separate video, which I have done. Look it up maybe one day. I guess it was 2 years ago though, on how they cultivate labdanum. It's a big deal, but it's like it should belong in your great grandmother's cabinetry somewhere. It's beautiful. I tend to buy Donna Karan's sometime. I've got the essential oil, but I'll spend the fortune sometimes it costs to get Donna Karan's, because it costs a lot because she's putting a lot of pure essential labdanum into the bottle. So it smells, I can't describe it. Think of the most beautiful, rich, woodsy, fruity, complex fragrance in the world. That's the only way I can describe it. And one last thing, by the way, you'll notice it's in an amber bottle. I keep all of my fragrances, and some of them are in clear bottles, but if I must do this, which is not recommended, but I keep all of my fragrance in the butler's pantry of this Victorian. It's dark always. There's not even an artificial light on in there. It's cool, so the fragrances year-round are at a moderate temperature, and therefore, if you're going to, again, spend this kind of money, you don't have to worry about the degrading of the fragrances. Oh, by the way, one last thing that I wanted to mention, I forgot to. One fragrance that I absolutely love is called Otter or Otto of Rose, or Bulgarian Rose. It probably is the most expensive of the bunch because it takes hundreds of pounds of rose oil to create the tiniest little dram of fragrance. but it's so worth it. So what I like to do is create a rose fragrance where I'll put some rose in the air. And I've got pure essential rose here. I'll probably add that to my rose water fragrances. You can get rose water anywhere, even a pharmacy. And then I'll sometimes include in the bottle fresh roses, petals, fresh petals, not dried, from the garden. The rose is so uplifting. And by the way, if you really would like to, especially for gals, put a drop of that on in the morning with your witch hazel, and you'll love the way your skin will flush and look fresh from rose. One thing I didn't want to forget to mention to you guys is, where do you get your essential oils from? I get them on the internet. I look for them at shops. They have to be pure essential. And health food stores sell various companies that have 100% pure essential oils. Occasionally, I will buy a fragrance that's not essential if I find it to be really good. Recently in Manhattan, I found something called Amber, which I love amber fragrances. It doesn't expire to 2016, so I haven't even opened it yet. It came from Urban Outfitters, and it's $30. That's a lot of money. But it's going to last me a long time. I haven't even opened it yet. Another fragrance, which is, again, chemically produced, I imagine, is Muguet du Bois. It's famous since the, 50s, 40s? Lily of the Valley. But it smells so much like Lily of the Valley that I would get it if I were you. And then, of course, let's discuss Betty Bye time. When it's time to go to sleep at night and you just want to get yourself in a relaxed state, the suggestion, of course, would be lavender. I might pass out while I'm speaking to you guys. Or chamomile. Chamomile also in the air. Andrew Weil has a fragrance out, a bedtime fragrance that you put in the air. It's very soothing and relaxing. Frankly, I'm a little allergic myself to chamomile, so because they only put a pinch in, it's good enough for me. But for other people, they drink chamomile tea, which I can't, or they take chamomile baths to relax. I hear it's fantastic, but I get allergic reactions. The only fragrance, by the way, I do. So that's it. Those are the fragrances that really get you in that mode of it's time to go to sleep. But at least for our purposes, in this zen, in this room, absolutely, it's a symphony of fragrances, if only you could smell it. But let's do a read and see what comes through today. Okay, let's see what comes through today. So, I've noticed since I opened up my eyes, Troy's in the room, so he's interested now. But the star was late for his performance. Come here, Troy. You want to get on film? Okay. Being a cat. Okay. The vibrations say this. And by the way, I know this video is going to be around for a long time, and it'll be post-Gemini at some point. But right now, as I'm reading for you guys, the sun has entered Gemini, and energies are moving at an astonishing rate. Even our speaking, as you can tell, we're speaking too quickly. We're ahead of ourselves. Consonants aren't being used. It's A-E-I-O. We're just going so fast. Everyone's thinking faster than the speed of light, faster than the speed of life. That's Gemini energy. I love it. And the vibrational fields say this. Now that I get to read you in purely Gemini energy post-solar eclipse, the vibes say this. Number one, numero uno. The energies put us in the realm of, well, it's nice to see this little blue bird with her eggs. That's sweet. But this vibrational field has everything to do with how to use your power now, this late spring, because remember what Gemini will do. Gemini will cusp into Cancer. So it's going to bring us quick moving energies, emotional vibrational fields. So it's going to move from intellect to emotion. While we, though, are in this intellectual vibe, the suggestion is be malleable. Use your power the right way. Think in terms of you're a powerful person and you don't have to prove it. So walk that fine line between when must I show people I'm empowered, it's my life for God's sakes, and when do you not have to say anything? You don't have to prove anything to anybody. So yes, it's not an easy thing. It's more of a remarkable thing to walk the tightrope of life, but that's how to exercise your will and your power most succinctly. Let's take a look at vibrational field number 2. So power came through first. You'll find yourself empowered in Gemini. That's a good sign. Energies are coming through. I'm not so sure. I didn't feel like it was really, though, so powerfully meant. If it reappears, it was. Okay, next vibrational field that comes through. Number 2 in the Grand Trine. This is this. Get it all the time. I guess you guys are going to for a while because we're in that certain zone this year. So even though I've been doing readings now for, 5 months into the Dragon year, the vibrational field is called, as you know, because you probably have seen it before in other videos, victory. But bear in mind what these vibrations say. They are Leonine ruled. These vibrations are starting to take us into summer. They're giving us a sense intellectually of what we should expect in advance, which is, you could have a victory, but you can't have a victory, though, without a struggle. So you might be feeling those struggles right now. I'm doing a lot of readings. I know people are. But the promise is, from the 6th month on, we should start to feel evidence in 6 and 7 and the 8th month, Leo, of victory. Goals will be reached. Your problems can be overcome to some extent. That's a nice thing to be able to promise people. Okay, let's take a look at the capstone of the pyramid. The vibrational field ultimately says this. I love it. It's very Daniel-esque, but it's very important to me. It's my wedding ring that my biologist friend Eric had taken once on a frozen river with a Herkimer diamond that I keep in my pocket at all times next to my ring. So I call the painting Golden Diamonds. What it represents is relationships. And because we get both emotional and intellectual vibrational fields that come through, it has a lot to do with how are you perceiving your relationships? Emotionally, what do you need from the people that you love? And a vibe like this does not produce fate, saying, dude or young lady, it's going to be this way. This vibe suggests your decisions play a part in the way things are going to go down in the future. So choose carefully. Generally, though, it's a good vibe, especially coming from somebody who's been married for a long time. Soulmates, twin flames, and things that we'll have to be doing in future videos. Anyway, that's your current read. May you have a wonderful Gemini, beautiful summer, and may it also smell fantastic too.